All right. Go.
Welcome, everyone, to our weekly Storm Gang podcast, aka episode The Reunion. We got Rob back in the building. How are you doing, Rob?
Hey, what's good, guys? I feel so happy to be back. I have not seen you guys in so long that I completely missed out the fact that Pierce's hair just completely grew back and he's about to cut it again.
Yep.
That's how long it's been. But yes, I'm very happy to be back. I miss you, beautiful souls. You guys are so talented, eloquent, smart, and very caring for society, and that is something I always look forward to be able to share this space with you guys. So thank you guys for that.
Oh, we missed the hell out of you, man.
Aw. I just been away for a little bit, but I'm back, you know.
We finally got the sex appeal back to the podcast, so it's nice.
Guys, we're back. We're back.
So, Rob, I think a good starting point is, what was your biggest personal takeaway from your EMT training that you were doing?
So no, the thing was that I signed up for EMT classes, but then I dropped it real quick. The only thing was that I had to drop it real quick because my intention was I want to do it as a volunteer basis. But a lot of people who I was going to classes with, it was yo, I want to do this for my career, because I want to do it because I'm still an actor. That's my main thing. But I want to find a way to help society that's more impactful, because yes, art and creation is important. You know, artists are very, very important to society. But immediately, what can I do? And one of them was okay, well, if something were to happen to somebody, it would be good for me to know. But I was like, holy crap! I was not ready for all of that. All the stuff that was in the classes. However, the reason why I wasn't able to show, so I had to kind of opt out of the class. But the thing is that the reason why I couldn't still, even though I dropped out of the class, I wasn't still able to join you guys' podcast, is because I still had to send my brother to and from school, because he started off with like online classes and then it became in person. So I had to drop him. I had to do a whole bunch of errands every night on that Wednesday night. So I was like, oh man, but finally he's done. So I'm like, okay. I told Pierce, I was like, okay, after this specific week, I am done, and I don't have any obligation anymore for driving at nights and stuff, so I could join you guys again, So that's why. But in general, so I didn't actually do that part. Just heads up, I didn't actually go through that part of it, but I had to go through a lot of the other family errands for them and stuff like that, while my brother was away. So yeah, so he just finished another exam, so he's about to be a full-time ENT pretty soon, of this week actually. So I'm excited for him. But for me, I might actually end up learning some street medic stuff, just for future rallies and stuff. In case something were to happen, I still want to know a few basic things. God forbid, if the four of us were going to go out somewhere and something were to happen, I want to at least know CPR, or at least how to measure certain levels and stuff. And right now I don't know that. And so if that were to happen to me in a real life situation, I'll be kind of flustered. I'll be call 911.
Well, I mean, the four of us, we would have Pierce there, and Pierce,
Pierce probably knows it, right? You know, CPR and first aid.
Yeah. In the Air Force, we call it self aid and buddy care. Kid you not? That's the acronym SABC.
SABC.
But yeah, I really recommend it. Learning basic first aid emergency skills is really useful. And I actually have used it before. So, it's definitely something that you don't want to be waiting for Google to load up your result. You
not at all.
Immediately.
So,
not at all.
My main question is, we've seen you on all these streams and all of these news stations and stuff at these protests and rallies, speaking, man, what the hell?
Those are pretty crazy, I'm not gonna lie, just because of how many people are gonna be there, and you never know what types of people show up, but you just hope that your message and what you say at this rally could speak volume, and you hope that whatever you say could travel and the message sticks through to people, and that you can rally people together. And the biggest thing is that you hope that you don't lose your voice, because we're chanting for 2 hours, 3 hours while we're marching out in the basking sun in New York City. So definitely you gotta protect your voice for it, especially when we're going out again and again, saying the same chants, and then at the end you gotta do a quick little speech. That's, you definitely have to have the breath and the voice for that. But luckily I'm still good, and it's been really nice to just being able to share. Y'all want to sorry, I can't read. Pierce. Yes, I am interested in your first aid story. But yeah, speeches. Very important. Yeah.
It's your floor now, Pierce.
Yeah.
All right. No, I was basically just trying to screw it. So first aid is important, right? And I guess like I have a story on that if you guys want to hear it. So I was in South Korea, and I was just walking the streets in Seoul one night with my friends, and we're not like blitzed, but you know we've had a few rounds to. It's one of those nights, right? And we come across this car that's in the alley, and I see this like hoodie that's in the back, and it's just like slammed up against the windshield, and I think it's like a dude that's just passed out in the back seat. The dude in front, his door is actually just open a few inches, and I see him like hunched over the steering wheel. I'm thinking, all right, like two guys just had too much to drink. You know, they just check them out and, you know, see if they're all right. Turns out the parka in the back wasn't the person. It was just hanging up there. And the dude in front, he was this kid. Like, he wasn't even 20. All right? He was just a kid. Like, 17 years old, he looked like. I don't remember what his license said. But anyway, I take a look at him. And, again, like, my first impression is just like, oh, there's not a big deal going on. You know, he's probably just had too much to drink. And I very quickly realized this dude isn't, like, passed out from alcohol. This dude is having an actual problem. This was like years ago. I don't remember all the details that led me to conclude this guy had a stroke. But ultimately, I decided, all right, based on this, you've had a stroke. First thing I got to do is like call an actual paramedic team, you know? So fortunately, I speak Korean. So I got on the phone and was like, hey, I need an ambulance over here. And I'm asking my friend to like flag down a local to be able to tell them where to send us, because like I don't know the streets. We were just walking through. The corner doesn't have like a street sign on it. And my friend doesn't speak English, so like all the Koreans, they're still just like walking by, and that's like one of the weirdest things. They were totally content to just ignore this car that was like blocking the walkway. They were just walking by, like, oh, I guess not my problem, just ignoring it.
There's all time in New York City like that.
Yeah, by a luck of fate, this girl comes by. She'd been a foreign exchange student out in Canada for a couple of years. So she spoke English, and she's like, oh yeah, this is, you know, this is the directions for where you're at. So I was able to get the ambulance, but before they got there, there's not too much you can do to treat for a stroke besides the classic treat for shock thing that they teach you in the military. So we're talking about elevate the legs, you know, get the head down, remove any constrictive clothing. So like the seatbelt, you know, that gets off. The like he was wearing a jacket. This was in January, by the way, so it was cold. You know, make sure that the body is not getting too cold. So like turn off the heater. You know, just like really, it wasn't much. It was basically just like make him comfortable and make sure that the police could get there.
But that part's still important too, you know, like because. Like if it was in that situation and I was there, like I wouldn't even know those steps, you know, like okay, you know, like the comfort of like someone's body and like, you know, elevating the legs, you know, I might have an idea of okay, you know, maybe something's wrong with their body temperature or like their blood, but I have no idea like in terms of the steps yet, which is why like, I'm still considering like learning that part just because it's gonna be so valuable. And like if I'm gonna be on set and something were to happen, like God forbid, I'll be like, oh man, like I gotta know how to like first aid.
Well, as an actor, there should always be a paramedic on standby, like any like set you work on. And
yeah, that's true. Yeah. On professional sets, they do have it.
But yeah.
But like here situation is just like it's so random, you know, like you never know. So
like certainly wasn't what I was expecting, you know, while I'm doing the bar crawl. Certainly not what I was expecting.
We actually got an interesting question in from Sue, who wants to know what our opinions on Yang's speech tomorrow night and what it will cover.
Great question, Sue.
So who wants to go first? Anyone? Okay.
I don't know about this speech. Tell me.
I nominate TPS.
We finally got him to we got him a spot speaking right before Joe Biden at the Democratic National Convention.
Thank you, Yang Gang, for Yang Speaks. That was huge.
Yeah, I mean, it trended with over 400,000 hashtags, tweets.
Yeah, all right. So
and the BBC actually paid attention, so that was pretty awesome.
Amazing.
I think it's going to be about all of him, trying to reach out to his fringe voters and everything, and trying to bring them into the side, because there are a lot of people who have walked away and said, well, screw it, I'm going to vote third party, I'm going to vote for Trump, I'm going to vote for Justin Trudeau, or I'm going to write in Marianne Williamson or some crazy shit like that. And I think his speech is going to be all about reaching out to them and bringing them back, maybe in, and trying to bring them over to Biden for the betterment of the country. Because I mean, that's what Andrew Yang is all about, is just trying to unite us all so we can move forward. So
I agree.
That's my take.
Yeah, I think he'll probably have a big tent approach to it. I think one important theme that he's going to mention, though, as well, is look how popular support has grown for UBI.
Yeah.
But anybody know how long he has to talk?
I think 3 minutes.
I'm not entirely sure. We can look at the DNC program on their website, but
the program doesn't actually give their allotted speaking time. That was announced on Twitter.
It wasn't, because it was from the list that I saw, it seemed like he had this time slot, but it was a very generalized, somewhere between the hours of 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. and then Joe speaks at 10 p.m. So it's somewhere around that time. But if anybody could confirm that too.
Yeah, no, I saw, from what I recall, I saw the program a few days ago. It said a 2-hour time frame, but after the first hour is when Joe's supposed to speak. So I think it's a very general, open-ended thing, because I think they're accounting for technical difficulties, things that could come up. Because I mean, I don't think even AOC's 90 seconds was slaughtered as a minute and a half on the program. I'm sure it was kind of a free form, hey, this is just a general order.
We were going for it to get 30 seconds, but somehow she got it up when she took on the duty and the to announce, Bernie and second his candidacy and everything. She got an extra minute out of that, which a lot of fun fact, a lot of people don't understand that, that it was a nicety that anyone with, the qualifying amount of candidates gets nominated at the convention. The only thing, the only way that could have caused an uprising is if Bernie would have actually accepted the nomination, and then they would have had to go to a floor count of delegates and go through a second call and so on. But it was just a nicety and politely, but it just shows that even take her being brave enough to take that responsibility and the backlash that it's caused her a day later from people who didn't understand the nominating process is just shows kind of how brave she is, even if she gets it wrong sometimes. She nutted up on that. I mean, it was freaking fantastic.
Yeah. There's a lot of social media reactions toward that.
We don't have a lot of politicians that are brave enough like that just to stand up and say, okay, I'll do that, and I'll take the firestorm that comes with it.
Yeah. And I think Andrew put it very well. The DNC in general is underestimating the understanding AOC has over what their constituents are going to. In regards to Andrew's speech, I personally don't feel like he'll be leaning on UBI as much as others would hope, given that, he has this giant platform, this amazing time spot right before Joe Biden to just hammer it home. Because I think Andrew, more than any of us here, understands the importance of uniting behind Joe right now. I think Bernie, during his speech, did a tremendously good job of doing that. And Andrew's tweet yesterday spoke a lot about what we're lacking here, is that, Joe Biden's strength in foreign policy and international relations is something we desperately need right now when America is becoming more and more isolated on the world stage.
I think that's a good point.
Plus, I mean, all the harping he's been doing on CNN the past couple of nights and everything has a commentator on UBI. Him hosting that Republican talking head on CNN with Anderson Cooper. He just burnt him. He bent him over his knee and spanked him. It was... Yeah.
And then when,
release of this is the Yang that should have been on every freaking debate stage,
And when Van Jones, that was a very good on the offensive end. When Van Jones was talking about I forgot the context of it, get off my lawn, and then Andrew was kids wish they had a lawn. And I'm I felt that.
At the last second, I do think that I actually think he might talk about a little bit about UBI, because kind of like bring back what Jason was talking about in terms of like that comment that he gave to that Republican governor, which was that how could you be talking about these types of ideologies when we're currently in this crisis? So one thing that I heard him talking about this in another one of the interviews, which was I think in the recent interview that he had like today that he dropped with Washington Post, where you're asking, so what can like the Democratic Party do in terms of like getting more of these voters, and like do they have like some type of plan? And so he was saying that, well, one thing that I do hope that the DNC do is like, you know, bring more of the idea of cash relief into people's hands. So he was talking about this. So because we're in this, like, we're still in a very COVID pandemic situation, and there's still going to be other people who aren't Democrats, or they're thinking about choosing which side they're going to vote for, and they're tuning into this DNC convention, hearing something about like cash relief in terms of for the small businesses, whether it's in Iowa or Texas or Oklahoma, like for them to listen to that could be a very, very powerful thing. And I think maybe that's why also they put him in the slot, which is to like have like some type of game plan. Because honestly, like we're in the Yang Gang, so we know, but his game plan is very clear in terms of how we can like help the economy get better. So he might talk about that for sure. And I think he also is going to talk about young voters, just because of what was mentioned earlier with the get off my lawn, and like, well, kids wish they had a lawn. So him talking about that too is like going to be very important too, because he definitely emphasizes the fact that like AOC, as well as him, he has like strong support with like not just like all types of people, but also with young people who also have technology too, and you know they're on Twitter or they're on like Twitch or wherever, you know, like. So he might talk about a little bit about both the.
Yeah, I agree with Rob. Like in the context of that, whereas is a solution to the current crises we're experiencing. Absolutely. I just don't. What I meant is more like you don't see it in the sense that like, you know, this was my platform running in, and use this as a podium to expand on that. You know, like it's just factual that his platform is something that we just really need right now to get through this as best we can.
Mm-hmm. Like at this point, it's not like his like flagship proposal. It's like he's proposing is more like, okay, well, this is just something that like we're gonna have to do anyway.
This is the most amount of water to the fire we're doing right now. Like throw in the fire.
For sure.
It's something that I'm really hoping Kamala like brings up and touches on, the fact that she's like now in support of at least $2,000. You know, even if it's only temporary. I'm hoping she brings it up in her speech, I think, which is tonight. And everything, I'm hoping she brings it up and, you know, touches on it, and maybe gives Yang, which will hopefully give Yang like more leeway and freedom to maybe just touch on it, but focus on reaching out to, you know, that sect of the Yang Gang that's, you know, just kind of like lost and, you know, feels like they've, you know, were abandoned by the choice of Joe Biden and everything, because they put like so much into Andrew Yang and so on. So.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that too. Like I see it from the comments sometimes of like some people saying, oh, you know, now that he supports Joe Biden, like, I don't know how I feel about Andrew Yang. But how I see is that for everybody who is tuning in, they're listening, and they might be a little bit wary. Like, remember, like, Andrew Yang, he's a smart dude. Like, he's not just going to like say whatever like that. He's here for the long game. Like, he's here to like not just like push forth like UBI and his message, but also to like help other candidates too who are also running. And so like he's here to stay in terms of politics. So, you know, for everybody who's just thinking, oh, you know, he's like betrayed us or something, like, no, like if you just watch his interviews, like Andrew Yang is still Andrew Yang, you know, like he's still doing his thing.
He's still the person that we all went to Iowa for. There's not a single person here who didn't freeze their ass off that, you know, doesn't.
Yeah, I think.
He's still the same guy that we froze our ass off for in Iowa. He's still the same guy that we gave our last dollar to. He's still the guy that, you know, we believed in more than anyone else probably in our lifetime. Well, except for me with Barack Obama personally, but you know, I know everyone else's opinion. But like 2008, I was like, you know, that's what gave me so much hope for Andrew Yang, because Obama was that same long shot. You know, the field wasn't as thick, but he was still coming out of nowhere, and you know, and that's why I was so readily able to believe in like Andrew Yang, because it's happened before, you know, and I was hoping it would happen again. So, but, you know, we are where we are, and you know, we've got to make the best of it. And you know, just because he's no longer, you know, our candidate doesn't mean that we still can't follow him.
Yeah, and
he's still a hell of a leader.
So. We also don't know what will happen. Like, for example, if the Democrats win and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris gets elected, there could be positions for like Andrew Yang and his platform too, in their team, in their immediate team.
Could be. I think it's pretty much a definite because like Joe Biden from like the summer of like last year.
Yeah,
like,
he
was on stage with Andrew. Like he's the smartest guy I've ever heard talk, which is what he took so much offense to. So.
Yeah, and doing whatever you can with the resources and influence that you have to still fight for the things that you've always been fighting for, I would say is as far from betrayal as you can possibly get.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are thinking that he betrayed them and everything, and that's just like not true because he still speaks the exact same way that he did from day one.
Dude's still not wearing a tie.
No matter the Democratic candidate is, I'm going to support them, even if it's not me. And he hasn't changed a single one of his talking points. All he's done is evolve them to fit the current climate. And they've only gotten better, and he's only gotten smarter, and he's only gotten more savvy, and he's only gotten more hungry for like ripping people's heads off, which is just freaking awesome. I still cannot get over Monday night. That was just so freaking awesome.
Did you see that live?
Yes, I did see that live.
Wow, because I only caught the action like when Zach and Matt Show posted it after. Well, shout out to Zach and Matt Show also for posting that. But I saw it after.
I don't always watch CNN, but I do when I
do. Andrew, Andrew and the man, that's what it is. But good question, Sue. Very, very good question. Yeah, that's something that we are all waiting.
If you're still watching, we hope we answered your question. And I've enjoyed all the rambling and everything that we've done on it.
For sure. I do see that, like, I have been very, very happy with the amount of recent Yang content that's been coming out. He's been appearing a lot more recently, and I feel like it's
I think there's honestly a reason for that too. I think it's more than just random. I think it's a little bit planned, possibly.
I think it definitely will be leading up to like tomorrow, for sure, 100%. So I know he's gearing up for that. So Andrew Yang, if you're watching this podcast, break a leg. Good luck tomorrow.
Andrew Yang, if you're watching this podcast, would you like to come on this podcast?
100%. Let us know. We were there. We helped you.
Yeah, it's gonna be. We have 11. I still think of it in terms of my field organizer days. We have 11 weekends until the election. As always, has a better sense of urgency as to how much time. If people say like 3 months or 11 weeks, no. We all know that prime time for volunteer outreach is your weekends, and that's how many we have left. We have 11 Saturdays, and that's it. And we all know, come those last 4 or 5, if you're involved in the political campaign, you're going to have some long nights ahead of you. I know I'm going to. So I'm excited. It's been nice. I'm volunteering for David Kim's campaign because it's kind of like
we like you.
Yeah, I should put my actual name on my on my thing. I'm like years and at.
Whatever you do, don't use speak to do it because it always calls you James Franco whenever I try that. So
that's hilarious.
I don't know why Surrey can't say John Marco. Surrey can only say James Franco when you say John Marco.
I think you're the only person that calls me James Franco on accident.
What was it?
Oh, are you talking about your speech to text?
Yeah, my speech to text always calls you James Franco. I don't know why. No matter how I enunciate Jean Marco or Juan Marco or anything, like it's always James Franco.
I've noticed my speech to text gets significantly better over time. And I thought it was the case that, especially with Android phones, I don't know how it is with Apple, but like they see your contact names and they say, if we say, hey, call John Marco, like they'll look up, oh, there's someone that kind of sounds like that name. You mean this person? And it kind of like learns over time how it works. And then we have rabbit hole talking about technology all over again. Just crazy these days. In terms of more, I guess, topical news for myself, Uber and Lyft. I don't know if you guys have been following California state news.
Yeah.
Uber and Lyft might be ceasing operations in the state of California.
Wait, what?
That's what you get for your employees.
Yeah, and it's crazy considering it started in California.
Oh, I missed this whole thing. This is actually happening. Like,
it might.
Yeah. So Uber and Lyft pay like shit, and they treat their employees like shit, and they classify them as independent contractors, so they can continue to treat them like shit. And their algorithm works to like at the beginning of your day, like when you first log in, they'll give you higher fares and stuff. But as you start earning more money, they like slowly start shooting you with the cheaper fares that are like $2 and $3 rides. So you're making less but giving more rides. So you're to make your daily quota, you're like, and everything that you need to like survive or whatever, you're having to work longer hours, and they're not paying overtime for over 8 hours because you're an independent contractor. They don't pay health insurance. There's more wear and tear on your car. It's just a whole bunch of bullshit, and I just feel bad.
And the main defense on Uber and Lyft is that it provides the drivers the flexibility of working when they want to, et cetera, et cetera. But the key thing here is that they have threatened to do this before in other areas, but the situation is totally different now, considering ride shares are down significantly since the pandemic started.
Yeah.
So that leverage isn't as strong as it used to be. My main concern is that I have a lot of issues with, especially Uber itself, like their corporate environment, the way they treat their employees or contractors, whatever it's going to be labeled as. Sure, like I don't mind them in a way, like suffering from their poor policies or actions. What I am concerned about are the people that are actually relying on this, especially creative individuals use this as an outlet for income, and especially now that concerts and movie directors are shut down across the board. I know they're relying on that much more just to help make ends meet, but now even that might be one of us closing for them soon. That's not even getting started with the fact of how backlogged the California unemployment system is right now too. There's still, I think, like 1 million people that still apply and haven't gotten benefits yet.
I'm glad I brought that up because ultimately Uber and Lyft, even though they're getting locked out of one of the largest markets in the world, California has a larger economy than other countries, right? It's a larger economy than France.
The 5th largest economy in the world.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, California is massive. Even so, they'll still be able to survive.
Yeah.
Uber will be fine.
Yeah.
People that were counting on that money, though, they're going to be struggling a little bit more. And this whole thing, like, Jason was providing a good perspective in how right now Uber is not treating them as employees, and accordingly as not employees, they don't have all these things that employees are supposed to have, such as medical insurance and things like that. But that really just kind of brings up the point of how we're in a transition point in employment in the 21st century. The rise of the gig economy, as it's called. And as a whole, that's actually something that we want. We want people to be able to set their own prices, to be able to set their own schedules, to be able to do and sell whatever labor it is that they want to provide, right? We actually want that. If we're able to decentralize employment and make it so that each individual is capable of basically being their own entrepreneur, that is only a great thing to have.
That is a true essence of an actual free market.
Right.
And I agree with you. That's a fantastic thing. But when you have your algorithm specifically designed to keep people on the clock longer and work less than minimum wage.
So I'm talking conceptually here.
Yeah, conceptually, I'm 100% for it and love it.
So Uber is an example of this in action, right? Each driver is able to run their own effectively business, but through Uber as the platform. Now, that's how it is in theory. In theory, they can drive for Uber and Lyft and Joe Schmo's taxi app. Now, in practice, you end up having a few of the problems that Jason was mentioning. They really don't feel like they have many options. At the moment, it's basically Uber or Lyft. You're really not feeling like you're running your own business. It's more just oh, hey, I'm an employee, but I'm kind of able to set my own hours. Except really, if I really wanted to set my own hours, I have to still front load it at these hours to get the best rates, and then even if you're working longer hours, yes, you might get shafted on certain fares or some other algorithm, right? There's actual problems. But from the state of California perspective, there's two main things going on. You're not paying employee benefits that you should be if they were employees, because when they work that many hours, they might as well be employees. And then there's the company is not paying payroll taxes. Because, you and I, we all pay income taxes whenever we have a job. But companies also pay taxes based on your income. A lot of people don't know that. So that is kind of like a perversion to disincentivize employment. Like when you look at tax structure, you want to subsidize what you want to incentivize, and then you want to tax what you want to disincentivize. So for example, we tax cigarettes because we want people to smoke less, right? And then we get to subsidize other things. Like if you want green energy, then you get to subsidize green energy or whatever, right? So right now, payroll tax is actually penalizing someone for hiring you. And that's actually like a big problem, especially when hiring you means that you get certain benefits that you need to live, such as reliable employment for any loan or, again, health insurance. So like this is really just like one of the most perfect examples of how the 21st century is evolving and how our current government structure is too far behind. California right now, them saying, hey, Uber, hey, Lyft, you guys can't operate anymore until you classify them as employees. It's kind of like a Band-Aid on the problem, Like on one hand, yes, if they end up classifying them as employees, which they haven't said they'll do yet, by the way, but if they end up classifying them as employees, hooray, they get employee protections. That's good. Seriously, I have no complaints about that. That is good. However, it still is just hindering the entire concept of, oh, hey, I can make my own business on my own terms through this gig economy, through these platforms. And it's just creating the extra headache of taxation and benefits on the employer side that really shouldn't be there. If we're able to remove health insurance from employment in the first place and just turn it to a national program, like that would be a huge boon for employers. I am one of the one of the first things I always think of is like the employer side, honestly, because most businesses are just small businesses. They're like literally, we hire 10 people, 20 people, maybe 100 people. They're not these corporate behemoths, right? And sometimes, we'll come up with some sort of law and we'll be aiming it at that corporate behemoth, and we forget about like what it's actually going to impact to the small business, right? If we're able to remove health insurance from being an employer burden, that is only going to do great things. That is only going to make it easier to hire people, to create new jobs, right? Like I am all for that as one example. And honestly, like it'd be an unpopular statement, but I'd like to get rid of payroll taxes as well. And like if you still want to make it so that the company is paying the tax, you can increase their income tax, but we don't want to be penalizing employment, especially in a 21st century globalized, competitive international market, and where automation and robots are, threatening to be your jobs more and more and more. So
actually, this conversation that we're having right now ties into another question from Sue. Like, what do you think Andrew Yang's, administration role will be in like a Joe Biden victory? I mean, me personally, I think it would be something like, technology and everything, because he's the most forward-thinking candidate out of everyone as far as technology comes. So I think it would be, something of a new creation for him, from Joe Biden's standpoint, where he's like in charge of maybe fixing how this gig economy works and, possibly removing the payroll taxes so companies pay a higher income tax or VAT or whatever, and so on and so forth. That, something like along those lines where he like dives into fixing this.
Yeah, I don't believe because cabinet level position like Secretary of Technology, it doesn't exist. Like that's not something you can just easily create overnight compared to just like an internal White House position that the president has the power to do so.
So it'd probably be something more like Secretary of Labor then.
Yeah, I can see him off top, like possibly Secretary of Labor, maybe Commerce. I wouldn't be as acknowledging maybe like the Secretary of Treasury. I think that might be too far of a stretch. I don't feel Andrew has the strongest qualifications for that field, but I would definitely lean on Commerce or Labor for sure on his end in terms of a cabinet position. But there are other things that, from my understanding, the president is within his power to create within the office of the president. But it all depends on if Biden wins first and foremost.
Yep.
Exactly why, if we want Yang to be a part of any administration, we have to get out there and vote for Biden.
Yes.
I mean, I compared it the other day to something pretty gruesome, as like a prostate exam with sandpaper gloves, but it's still something we have to do.
That's a very vivid image. Thank you.
Sue is planning to write in Andrew Yang, and honestly, I probably am too. I'm not gonna lie to you. So I'm in New York. It's not considered a competitive state in the slightest. Fact of the matter is, I don't think Biden is a sufficient candidate for president, and obviously, I can't vote for Trump. That would never happen. So at the moment, I'm leaning towards writing in Andrew Yang. I would still qualify as undecided in my vote, but that is where I'm certainly leaning at the moment. And I think, like, if anybody wants to vote their conscience, I'm never going to fault them for it. One vote ultimately never decides the election. It's important that every person does vote. I'm not saying in the slightest that your vote doesn't matter, but I am saying that one vote will not decide the election. That's just mathematics, right? So there's no reason to ever feel coerced into making a vote that you don't believe in, is my opinion on the matter. Now, say that you're in a more competitive state, such as North Carolina, right? North Carolina, I mean, you might not say Biden is your favorite candidate, but you might believe in the opportunities that Yang might have in a Biden administration. You might believe in simply removing the current occupants from office via the most likely method possible. Those are viable beliefs to have, even if you don't actually really like Biden. So I'm not even saying don't vote for Biden. Biden is, in all sense, the only other person that can beat Trump, and beating Trump is your objective. And all right, yeah, vote Biden, right? But especially in my own shoes out here in New York, I don't see a reason. I feel like my own vote has more impact and honestly weighs easier on my conscience if it's a write-in for Andrew Yang.
Yeah. I would just chime in
the perfect point. If you're not in a state that is considered competitive, do whatever you want to do. If you know your state's going to go blue, all the way. But I'm in a state that's recently, and I will be voting for the first time in November in a state that's recently become, a battleground state. Like Oklahoma is one of them for the Democratic Party in the first, time in forever.
Yep.
I mean, this passed a huge Medicare expansion here that I was proud to be a part of, and work with and help get passed here. That fell very heavily on the Democratic side, and we, it was close, but we freaking took it from the red side. And we have that opportunity with the state of Oklahoma as a general is take it from Trump. I mean, it's only 10 electoral votes, but still 10 for Biden. I mean
that's big. That's big.
The current occupant, because there's no way in good conscience I could possibly allow, as much as I love Andrew and would love to be in California where I could write him in, I can't possibly just, allow Trump to. I feel like I'm doing my country a disservice by voting.
Right, you are voting your conscience. Right.
So, it definitely weighs in on the fact that what state you're in, because remember, Bush won 2000 by 500 votes decided in Florida. So if you're in a battleground state, definitely take that into consideration.
You've got to go party lines.
Yeah, if you're in a state that's, I would say, 15 plus safe for one party, that's maybe a different story.
New York's pretty safe.
Yeah. Battleground states, you've got to vote. You're doing your country. If you believe Trump is a bad president, you want him out of office more than anything, you've got to vote. Party lines. But if you're in a state where it's going to go blue, then vote for whoever. Write in Mickey Mouse. I don't care. But you do what you do. But like I said,
beating
healthcare initiative that was very gone on bipartisan lines by less than 1,000 votes here in Oklahoma. So I know every vote for Biden means something in order to remove Trump. and we can turn this state blue. And it's something that I'm like working hard on. I'm like working with, you know, Abby Broyles campaign. Shout out Abby Broyles. You're fucking awesome. We love you. I love phone banking for you. I love volunteering for you. You're the best freaking chance we have to, you know, put the first Democratic female senator in Oklahoma history would be Abby Broyles, and I'm hoping to God we fucking do it. You know, we got
incredible.
It's a state that we have a chance to turn blue, and you know that's
For the first time. That's crazy.
For the first time since the civil rights movement, because Oklahoma used to go blue no matter what until the civil rights movement. That's the shocking.
I didn't know that.
I don't know why that is. I haven't like dived enough into the history yet to understand why Oklahoma suddenly went right after civil rights, but it did. Whatever, but we can take it back. And
so farming,
and you know that's why I've chosen to stay here and you know fight for that. So.
Yeah, I'll actually answer that question. The Democrat Party used to be the party of farmers.
Yeah, Jimmy Carter.
Right. And at some point, farmers started to feel that their interests were better represented by the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Just like the historic black voter tended to vote for Republicans, right?
Yeah, that's because
you guys aren't aware of that?
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, way before the civil rights movement, the typical black voter voted for Republicans because Abraham Lincoln was in the Republican Party. And from that point, you know, it was the Southern Democrats that were instituting all these, like creating actual Jim Crow laws, you know.
Yeah, like IQ tests for blacks code and so on and so forth.
That was all the Southern Democrats with heavy KKK influence. And, you know, that was only 60 years ago. But
it's crazy.
A lot changes in 60 years. You know,
what I want to do is like just talk about like how the word liberal has like moved from both sides of the party. Like it's like when Lincoln was like, you know, running for president and everything, he was this crazy liberal Republican. And somehow over that time, we've seen the word liberal like move all the way across to, you know, almost the furthest part of the Democratic Party. I mean, there's still like, if you go a little bit further left, you get the progressives. And if you go even further left than that, you're a Democrat who gets your guns back because you become a Republican socialist. But which is funny as hell, the way that the whole political circle works. Like people think of it as a line and you fall somewhere on it, or a graph that you fall somewhere on, but it's like more of a complete like circle. And everyone wants to focus on the moderates up at top. But if you remove the gun issue from the bottom part, you have the Democratic Socialists and the Republican Socialists that would actually be a larger party than both the Republicans and the Democrats combined. It's kind of funny how that works.
I don't think I actually agree with that, but I do appreciate you looking at it in a different perspective, because I agree people thinking, oh, it's left or right are not seeing the entire picture at all.
Yeah, it's a circle, and like the only thing that's like, you know, barring us from having, you know, almost a European like, you know, based socialist government would be the gun issue, because there are Republican socialists who believe in big government, who believe in high taxes, who believe in everything. The only issue that keeps them on that side is guns. And there's a large section of Democrats who are socialists who the only thing, you know, that they're wholeheartedly just against gun ownership. And if we were to remove that little bar from the base and like find a way to unite those two, we would have a viable three-party system in this country. It's insane. Like that one issue can like somehow removing that can like almost unite both, you know, like the most extremes of both parties if you look at it on a circle scale versus a straight line that you fall somewhere on.
I mean, that's not exactly an issue that you can just remove, though. You know,
I know it's not an issue. The issue is like removing it, you know.
A lot of people, regardless of their upbringing, a lot of people with good reason, you know, a lot of historical reason, believe that the Second Amendment is what guards all the others.
I know. I'm a crazy ass fucking liberal, but I love guns.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
Like, I mean, I was wholeheartedly Bernie in 2016. I was wholeheartedly Barack in 8 and 12. You know, and I came from, you know, my father was pretty much a conservative up until, you know, after like Bush and everything. And, I was a young Republican like my junior and senior year in high school. And the only reason I became a liberal is because of Ralph Nader coming to my high school, speaking with us, and getting the young Republicans to come volunteer for him, and getting us to, hey, he sent us to this. This is the most common misconception about the 2011 election. I mean, the 2000 election is that Nader ruined it for Gore. That's not the truth. Nader was recruiting young Republicans from high schools and stuff to go out and campaign and knock on doors for him, and talk to Republican voters and convince Republicans to vote for Ralph Nader instead of George W. And, trying to give Gore, who he felt was the better man, the election, while also bringing to light the issues he believed in. And people want to blame that entire fiasco in Florida on Nader because he got 9,000 votes. Those were 9,000 Republican votes mostly that would have fucking, handed Bush the election hands down. So, to anyone who thinks Ralph Nader ruined the 2000 election.
Reminds me of Andrew Yang with Now Left, Not Right Forward, and how he built a whole coalition of like people outside of what we normally consider as just like Democrats.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know people that went from like I would never support Yang to once they literally read about his gun policy, they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I can see myself supporting that because
a lot
of people really need to remember that this country was founded on just literally revolution from tyranny, and there was a time, admittedly, that I was much younger and I thought all these shootings are horrible and I think no one should have guns, like solve the problem that way. But fundamentally, I realized later that there is something very dangerous in disarming your citizenry.
100%. Yeah. 100%.
Look at what's going on in Hong Kong right now.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You think Hong Kong would be undergoing what it's going if that population was 80% armed?
Absolutely not.
No, not a chance.
No.
Not.
But we're also talking about the CCP here. They're crazy too.
Yeah,
Chinese governments. They got a whole their military stack too, so that would be pretty crazy. But I do agree.
By the way, we are missing a golden opportunity with Hong Kong. Hong Kong right now has a mountain of democracy-loving, highly educated people that are looking for a new home, a safe place to live and raise their families. And we're not letting them on. One sec, I'll turn that off.
I agree, Pierce. Like, it's a place that's very independent, and we should be welcoming a lot of them with open arms.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I totally agree with Pierce. And like, if we change a few of these like immigration policies and stuff like that, and we're able to get people asylum, I think a lot of people would come to America. There are a lot of people in Hong Kong who are like, hey, like we need our democracy back. Like they need democracy because they're like so done with it,
Well, I mean, they were raised with it their entire lives up until what was it, 1999? We went over this before, right?
1997.
Not when you were here, Rob, but like when John Marco and myself, we were talking about the British rule over Hong Kong and how it ended in like 99, I think.
Yeah, there's a Passover sometime in 90.
It's been 20 years of them trying to like adjust to the rule of China, which is not a democracy.
Mm-hmm.
It was 97, by the way.
Oh, it was 97, yeah.
Yeah. It was in July 1997.
Yeah.
I think it was 99.
End of the century, all the same.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They've been going through a lot of crazy shit since.
Do we have a Twitter account for just anything?
Sue. I think I love you, Sue. So we don't have a like combined Twitter. To be frank, there is the Forward United account, which is how we are streaming. We are actually streaming live on Forward United. Look, I can even change the brand symbol. Boom, at the top right, Forward United, Storm Game, Forward United, Storm Game.
The power that Pierce has. And Twitter handle is forward abbreviated, so FWD United. So at
can you write that down? United. Can you write that down for Sue?
Maybe someone can drop that on the multi-chat.
Yeah.
I think I could do that.
But maybe we should get one. I don't know. We'll think about it.
I am already voting myself to not be responsible for managing that account.
I'm already, I definitely. Holy crap! I just somehow spammed it in the chat there, Sue. Yeah, that's the Twitter account. from like 8 different
accounts.
I did not know I had that power.
It's fine. If you're curious, Sword United is an organization started by James Ellers. James Ellers ran for Congress in Southern California, and he's been part of the Yang Gang for a while. So anyway, he asked us to start this podcast, and here we are.
Yeah.
This entire thing was an accident, by the way.
I was drunk one night, and Ellers asked me to come on his live stream for something, and then I'm like, I don't want to talk to Ellers. Screw Ellers. I'm going to send it to people I like.
Yeah.
And I sent it to Pierce and Gianmarco and Rob, and then more of us talking.
Yeah, I get a text message from Jason with just a URL, and I'm like, well, I'm familiar with this URL, and I trust Jason. I'm just going to press a link that he sent me that could easily be spam. And
then all of the porn that he had to endure.
Yeah, this is definitely like, I was like, oh, wait, we're doing this? Okay, we're just going to hop on every week. We're going to talk about, hey, we're just going to figure it out when we get there.
I'm disappointed about this aspect of myself is that I always forget I do this. I never promote it because it was an accident. I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. I'm on a podcast. Like, how long have you been doing a podcast for? Like 3 months now. Like, how can you never
actually?
Well, I kind of like, it was kind of accidental. And I saw it on my calendar like every Wednesday, just log in and do it.
Are you the accidental podcast?
I've been more conscientious about trying to spread it around. But Wednesday, especially with how fast time is going and me volunteering for a campaign, like Wednesdays come out of nowhere for me every week.
Oh yeah.
Like I will end this episode, I will blink twice, and it will be Wednesday 6 o'clock next week again.
That's good though, man.
No, I feel that too.
Busy weeks are the best weeks, truly. For
sure. And thank you for all that you do too. Like we've had the experience of like campaigning for like, oh man, this is not a joke. When you're campaigning, it's a lot of effort, mental power, even physical power sometimes, and you gotta be on it every single day, from morning till you sleep.
Yeah, but
even when you
the whole like volunteering for campaigns thing like only came around like 4 years, and occasionally, if I knew a candidate and like cared enough, I would jump in on a congressional or a Senate one, locally. But like every 4 years, I was always involved as a volunteer on presidential campaigns because I started when I was young with Nader, and it was but like now it's just like something that since Andrew Yang, I feel like compelled to be involved in absolutely everything I believe in, no matter what the scale, and it's like completely scary. Like how much
but you took it to a whole other level, like from just start off like with Storm Gang and everything, and now you're in Oklahoma. Like it's crazy. Like
no offense to Oklahoma, but it's like there's no fucking in and out here. Like how do you people survive?
It's hard, but even with Pierce too, like both Pierce and I, like we never like volunteered or worked for any presidential campaign or any type of campaign before, and I met Pierce like when he picked me up at the airport in Iowa, and it's like we're both here, never done this before, and first time here, and let's go for it.
I think with a lot of Andrew supporters like that volunteered for the first time, it was a very like, oh, that escalated very quickly kind of experience.
I know when I first heard that Rob was coming, I was like very scared because the guy who originally set up the Storm Gang house in Storm Lake, Iowa, he shared your Reddit history with me, and it turned out not to be your Reddit history. It turned out to be this other guy's Reddit history, from that Pierce and I got the hell out of Dodge after,
Yo, man, you don't just look at you don't look at someone's Reddit. You don't look at
when I was given Rob's number, I saved it as like weird Rob based on his Reddit history. Until I met him, and he was like the sweetest guy ever, and I found out I got the wrong Reddit history.
Dude, if you find out someone's Reddit username, man, you don't go down the Reddit history, man. That's not cool.
I still really don't know how to use Reddit. Like he just sent me like a screen grab of like all the things that he was commenting on, but it wasn't actually Rob. It was like some other guy. And so I thought Rob was like the weirdest human being ever for the first until I met him.
Like Rod Chan or something like that.
Yeah. Like, in terms of Reddit, that's one of my favorite things about the platform is that you're not looking at someone's profile picture. You're not looking at, someone has a specific work history or goes to school somewhere. You're just looking at a username, as hilarious as some usernames may be. And you're just interacting with that. You don't, you take away all preconceived notions of what you may have about that person on the face of it, which is one of the better things of Reddit. But yeah, if you give your Reddit username to someone, that's a lot of trust right there, man. That's like, I don't know. That's why I have like 2.
John Marco pioneering the safe for work Reddit and the not safe for work Reddit.
For sure. I
It's
think
like
I should like
Instagram with like all your strip club photos on it.
I guess it's time I need to delete some of these stripper photos off my my phone. Then off of Instagram. Shoot. Crazy.
Speaking of social media and like possible future public office stuff, I saw a tweet yesterday that I personally would agree with, and it said, a lot of women in their 30s are running for public office right now, and as a society, we need to find out how we can make it disgraceful. Not the fact that they might have private photos that were leaked, the more the fact that those photos were leaked. Because I'm more on the fence. I'm more on the side that someone's personal life and information is absolutely what they do on their own spare time. But to try to shame someone like I think it was Katie Porter in California.
Katie Hill, right?
Katie Hill, yeah.
Yeah, that pissed me off so badly.
Yeah, and I'm like, long story short, she's a freshman member of Congress that had explicit photos leaked, and she had to resign basically because of that. And I'm like, why are we destroying someone's life over something that, first and foremost, is legal? Like, what you do under the protection of, I believe, which amendment was, but, your personal private life is your personal private life. And 2, like, why are we not shaming the people that are actively trying to destroy someone's life for something that they did on their own spare time and privacy?
No, I absolutely love Katie Hill. I had no issues with anything that came out. I'm like, so she wasn't like abusing children or animals. I mean, who cares that who cares? She's incredibly intelligent. Was honestly the best person to run in that district forever, and now it's back in Republican hands because people are fucking dicks.
Yeah, now granted, there's some very specific details about the whole situation I'm not aware about, but just on the surface level, like having heard that happened, I'm like, all right, guys.
Yeah. Like I got out there and I knocked doors for her. Like she wasn't even in my district, and I would I drove out there to knock doors for her and everything, and help get her elected. And it was just like, what the hell? Why would you do this? Like, I mean, it's nothing, and it was nothing bad at all whatsoever. It was a strong, intelligent woman embracing her sexuality. I mean, what the hell? Like, everyone has the right to embrace whatever the hell they want to embrace. To within the bounds of the law and common decency of not animals or children.
And there's the whole underlying theme of hypocrisy too. I'm like, you're shaming someone for something that you probably have done before regularly. With all the social unrest among minorities being killed by cops, etc. People always worry about. I'm paraphrasing, but people always worry about the stuff and the life they live leading up to that. And then when it's someone that's particularly a person not of color, they worry about the future that was taken for them. And that's two different sides of guys, you're pigeonholing stuff. And for people that complain about the hypocrisy annoys me too, because you're complaining about they did drugs. I'm like, dude, you do that much drugs on a Tuesday, okay? So shut up. Right.
Big facts.
So
also, Sue's question.
She wants to know if Yang runs in 2024, what should Yang Gang do differently?
Great question.
Oh,
we learned a thing or a million in this campaign.
My favorite answer is talk to mom, dad, and grandma, and grandpa. That's my shortest answer for you. We were extraordinarily young dominated in our support, and we did not extend and penetrate into the elder demographics. And the easiest way you can do that is talk to your parents, talk to your family, talk to your grandparents. And that's a difficult conversation to have, especially if if they often get abrasive about that sort of thing. That's very frequently a difficult conversation to have. But ultimately, Andrew Yang, if he runs in 2024, will never become president if he only has people under 40 supporting him. It won't happen. The numbers just aren't there. You have to reach out and widen that breadth. Andrew Yang was unique in being able to pull from people from all across the aisle. But wherever those people across the aisle were, they were overwhelmingly under the age of 40. It was an overwhelming bias. It was the most diverse under 40 support that you could find, but it was under 40. So the shortest answer for you, talk to mom, dad, grandma, and grandpa. That's the shortest answer I got for you.
And that conversation doesn't start in 2023 when, the primaries are starting. It starts like today. It started like yesterday. It started back, wherever. Because my entire family was on board with either Warren or Bernie, except for my brother, who was Pete until, Pete, blatantly ripped off Andrew Yang on stage. And he's like, wait a second. I remember my brother telling me Andrew Yang said this all the time. Screw you, Pete. I'm going to Warren. I just keep wearing him down. And my father's following Andrew Yang like crazy now. He's just if your guy, Andrew Yang, would just, develop a little bit more sex appeal. The problem with Andrew Yang is women want to vote for someone they can fuck. And he doesn't look like he can fuck. You can tell he's in love with his wife, My dad being, the crash individual that he is, that's raised an extremely brash individual like I am, but he's giving me advice to pass on to Andrew Yang on how to get elected next time, what makes him appeal to older men want to vote for a guy that looks like he's a player. Women want to vote for a guy who they think they can have a chance at getting in bed. And it's
all types of
very mad, thought process to it.
Well, I hope that it changes to a
for
point
very,
where
very few people is that a conscious thing.
Yeah.
However, Jason's making a point though that better looking people do better in politics. Why is that? Right?
Yeah.
It's as a whole, better looking people tend to be more persuasive for things outside of politics as well. So,
that's why Rob was the best person to send to knock on a door in all of Iowa.
Oh my God! If anything, I'll say Pierce gets the gold star for that one.
Nah, brother, I'd murder somebody for your smile. But there's overlap. I don't think your dad's exactly hitting the reason right for why he's right, but he is basically right.
Yeah. Andrew Yang's a very good looking guy, according to my dad. Women just need to believe that they can fuck him.
So,
because he's Asian, we got to tell women that
Andrew Yang, he says when you look at Andrew Yang, you can tell he's in love with his wife, and that's bad for politics.
Going off to what was said previously, talking to your family early on, having those conversations, because there was a notion that we wanted to shock the world in Iowa, and I understand the shock factor in that. I had my reservations about doing that though, because being a brand new political campaign that has never run for office before, et cetera, that is extraordinarily risky. And I personally feel that there was a lot to gain from getting the name out proactively sooner, and thus turning the Overton window further than we have already. Even though we turned it a lot, we moved Overton window a lot. Changing the conversation is a victory within itself. That's in a lot of ways why Andrew, even though he lost, he did win in a lot of ways. But had we gotten to maybe 10, 15% in the polls in late December, that would have been a tremendous weight and leverage to help shift the conversation towards things like universal basic income and the approaches in which Andrew is trying to drive this country forward in a lot of ways. So that's my thing. I think peaking too early, I understand the problem with that. We've seen campaigns where that has caused more problems than they have gained, they have benefits. But I think sufficient growth early on allows for better exponential growth down the road.
Definitely, yeah.
But that was one of my personal grievances with, strategy in terms of that regard.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is that, if Andrew Yang were to run in 2024, already it's going to be a different type of campaign. because when he first ran, like nobody knew who he is. Now that he already has like a bit of momentum, a little bit of influence, and he already has the Yang Gang. So then moving forward, to answer the question, what can Yang Gang do? So I agree. With like talking to your friends, like talking to your family, yes. And part of it too is like stay connected with other people who are in Yang Gang and who are also like in different groups, such as Forward United, such as Humanity Forward, and even stuff like Yang Gang Fitness. Like because if you're in Portugal, right? If you're in Portugal, you might not be able to like meet a lot of other people, but you can stay connected. You can be in the know about of things, and then you as an individual could then spread that awareness to other people while also getting connected with what other people within the Yang Gang are doing to help promote Andrew Yang's message. And I'm sure that like if he were to run again, I think a big one would be having more unified pushes in terms of, say, if it's going to be a certain hashtag that like everybody within the Yang Gang is going to hop on this hashtag. For example, let Yang speak. The reason why he's on that stage is because Yang Gang rallied together for this, and then it caused so much noise that they had no choice but to listen. So if he's going to be running again, like that's another thing is that like having that unity within the Yang Gang, that's not. Yeah, you can have different opinions naturally, but to have like a unified message that we can all agree on is going to help going up. It can help go a lot forward, at least in terms of like the media route. So because we already talked about like what you could do in person, like family. So outside of the family part, like if you want to use social media, and even outside of social media, there's also a lot of other ways that you could do. I know a lot of Yang Gang people are very creative in terms of like sending. Creating like pen pals. There's a whole pen pal thing in Iowa where people are writing letters to people in Iowa to let them know about Andrew Yang, sharing video clips. Volunteering is huge. So if you have the time and if you're in the States and you're able to volunteer, even at a local level, if you're not in Iowa, say you're in Florida, volunteer, figure out who the local people are organizing it, and then help run it. Because there's still a lot of people within the Yang Gang who is for the first time, because of Andrew Yang, they're actually like volunteering for a political campaign, and for the first time they're getting involved with politics. But now these people who are volunteers, they're now more seasoned now. So therefore, moving forward, like we following along with the knowledge that we have, we could then like have a strong momentum going in if you were to run again.
Yeah, and I think one of the important things about volunteering is that I think it's a good first step in a lot of people realizing how important their time is in making an impact. Because you kind of learn like, hey, yeah, I spent 3 hours phone banking on a Saturday, and I convinced 10 people to vote for this person. Like, if you scale that all the way down to just like someone running for city council or state representative, those 10 votes have tremendously much more weight on that scale.
Exactly.
And once you have that itch, it's kind of there forever.
And being a member of the Yang Gang that's volunteering on the local level for local politics or state politics or, congressional politics, the people around you are going to ask, oh, what else have you done? Who, you're just, Yang's going to come up in conversation, and the way you, act and everything towards them, and they see your work dedication and everything to that campaign, they're going to be like, these Yang guys take this pretty fucking seriously. Maybe we should take Yang seriously if this is what he inspires, And it like works kind of like that. Also, and I know I have like no connection to the campaign or anything like actual connection to the campaign, but I would love to see them like hopefully this time around like listen to boots on the ground a lot more than what it felt like they did in Iowa to a degree. Like when you have people out there every day who are like freezing their freaking nipples to the point to where their heart is diamonds, like Pierce and John Marco, and you were like, fucking listen to them when they give you a fucking opinion, like be like, hey, like these people are out there like, knocking the doors. Maybe we should actually like listen to them on like where they've had the most success versus going off some game theory algorithm from Game of Thrones that you found on Reddit or some bullshit,
Yeah. I will also say that don't get swallowed in by all like the internet hype too. Like stay collected, stay grounded, like focus on the mission. If he's running in 2024, you better believe I'm just gonna like, all right, whatever my life was before, all right, we're doing this.
Yeah,
When are we going to? Hopefully this time is warm.
Yeah, be grounded, like, because especially this during the campaign, Twitter can easily be an echo chamber of confirmation bias, man. Like those polls are cited for a reason, and you have to really look at those for a real understanding of what's going on.
And don't just look at the polls that are in your, don't look at these influencers who run polls and stuff that are only influencing the Yang Gang. Look at polls that are legitimate and outside of it and everything. I mean, look at the official polls and see what people what the actual country thinks, and then that way you have a scale of what the work you need to do, like Gianmarco said.
Yeah, take out the real clear politics, polling aggregate averages, your 538s, but don't ask, don't depend on when Andrew Yang asks the Yang Gang who we want for president. You're going to have a specific answer that's going to confirm to your biases.
For sure, definitely. For sure. I'll also say the last, in terms of the last thing that I think that what people could do within the Yang Gang is also on themselves. Is what you could change about yourself and within your own life. Because if you want to represent a candidate and you love them and you want this person to win, then you yourself should also feel like you're winning. So conduct yourself in a way that is representative of the campaign. So humanity forward. If it's going to be humanity forward, you are also representing humanity forward. You should be going don't try to degrade somebody on the internet and stuff like that, because then if somebody sees that and they see that blue hat, they'll be like, oh, maybe everybody from the Yang Gang is just this type of way and closed off and something like that. And one of the reasons why why Yang grew so big was because I see it time and time again when people have said, wow, I didn't expect this, but the Yang Gang is very welcoming, or it's so inclusive. I never got that before with other candidates. It always seemed candidates, their following was very toxic. They didn't want to include my ideas but see, the Yang Gang is a rainbow coalition. So if we keep having that mindset of being open and loving humanity and being to help one another through that, that is something that you could do on your own, and that's something you practice every single day in your daily life. So when the time comes, when it's Andrew Yang is voting for president, man, even your friends who may not be political, the fact that they know you and that you're political and that they like you, they might be like, hey, I'm going to actually check out Andrew Yang because I trust this person. I trust my friend who's been super nice and so active and articulate. I'm going to check a look at Andrew Yang because I trust this person. So that's another thing that I would say is very important.
I am so glad to have you back.
We're all glad to have you back. Wow.
I
miss you guys.
I think that's a good point to wrap it up. Everyone watching, thank you for being here. We'll be here again next week, same time, same place. We'll have some other guests coming down the line that we think you'll be excited to see as well in a few weeks as well. So everyone, stay healthy, stay safe, love each other.
Take care.